stats, which I'm sure you saw. And I mean, there are 4 or 5 tools they've used to basically mask the real inflation, the hedonic adjustments, etc. And frankly, I think they just outright lie. I don't think there's anybody who thinks that inflation is what the reported inflation numbers are. I mean, my auto insurance up 30. We had never had zero in the United States.
The sovereign debt crisis has already begun, though we remain in the gradually phase before the suddenly phase accelerates. Traditional financial assets, especially sovereign bonds, are rapidly losing value against Bitcoin and gold. The core issue is fiat currency debasement. Governments print endlessly, eroding purchasing power. Gresham's law dictates that bad money drives out good, and today, Bitcoin is emerging as the superior store of value. Bitcoin's fixed supply of 21 million coins makes it the most sound form of money ever created. Despite its price volatility, historical adoption trends indicate continued exponential growth. Investors who recognize its potential today stand to benefit immensely. Even at $100,000 per coin, Bitcoin remains undervalued relative to global financial assets. Long-term projections suggest Bitcoin could reach $1 million or more within the next decade. Skepticism and fear often prevent people from buying, even as they spend equivalent amounts on depreciating assets like luxury cars. However, waiting for a perfect entry point is futile. The key is time in the market, not timing the market. As fiat currencies continue their decline, Bitcoin is the exit from the burning theater of inflation. The greatest risk is having zero allocation. Whether through dollar cost averaging or lump sum investing, holding Bitcoin offers asymmetric upside. As history has shown, those who adopt transformative technologies early reap the greatest rewards. The question is not if Bitcoin will rise, but whether you'll regret not owning it when it does. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and enabling post notifications for more content on crypto and digital assets. Check out our other videos and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your engagement helps with the YouTube algorithm and keeps the content coming. Thanks for your support. Enjoy the video.
Lynn and her book, you and your work, Saylor and his work. The list goes on and on. I can't list them all here, but what I've done, what I think my talent is, Preston, I mean, everyone kind of has the highest and best use in life. I think mine is kind of figuring stuff out and trying to explain it in a way that every man can understand. Yeah. And that's really what I tried. I mean, the goal of this book, I wrote it because I was sitting around one day last spring watching some blue team argue with some red. Yeah, I get it. I get why I'm being screwed. I get what's wrong. And furthermore, there's a hopeful solution. I get how we can solve this whole damn thing. So yeah. If I did that, then I'll view it as a success. I mean, I think Bitcoiners are going to love the book, right? That's not really the audience. The audience is somebody who doesn't think about this stuff and doesn't know about this stuff, right? So that's just background.
Did your wife think that you were crazy taking on this? Because this
absolutely. And furthermore, I started this in May, June, and it's done. We're just trying to get it laid out, which is driving me nuts. And so in 6 months, I just, I did nothing but this book, and that caused a little bit of friction, because she likes to spend time with me, and we like to do things together, and some of those got kind of canceled. But anyway, here it is, it's done, and I'll go back to my regular life after this thing's over. So
let me just say, for people listening, if you want to get a book that you can hand to somebody,
the average citizen, because as you and I both know, we've talked about for so long, they're just getting screwed left and right, and I see it all the time. And many people who are doing quite well don't really see it or focus on it, but I do. And, and my sister lives in a community that's more rural, and she sees it, and she tells me about it. And it's tragic what's going on. We got to fix it. I mean, the good news is, as the book talks about, it's getting fixed. I mean,
it's getting fixed.
Would, right?
And I knew you would. And you start telling the story in the book, and I got this giant smirk on my face, because I'm just like, of course Larry is going to take the opportunity to tell these people, these highfalutin individuals.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, I was the turd in the punch bowl, man. I mean, it went over like a lead balloon. I mean,
I thought
HBS is probably not going to invite me to any more events. I can tell you that. Look, people watch movies, and people read stories, and people care about people. People don't read economic textbooks that explain why Keynesianism's wrong.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I tried to bring all the Larryisms into it, because it makes it more interesting, right? I mean, how about the how about the carrier landing story with George, right? I mean, I'm sure as a former, former aviator and pilot serving in a war stats, which I'm sure you saw. And I mean, there are 4 or 5 tools they've used to basically mask the real inflation, the hedonic adjustments, et cetera. And frankly, I think they just outright lie. I don't think there's anybody who thinks that inflation is what the reported inflation numbers are. I mean, my auto insurance up 30%, homeowners insurance was up 100% last year. I mean, it's, try to go to a veterinarian or pay a medical bill. I mean, it's insane what's going on. And this is why everyone's hurting so bad. This is why the middle limbs, no train stopping. And then he further said, and gold and Bitcoin are the solution. I think that's the first time I've heard him say something positive about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So, right? I mean, and
this is very recently. This is just in the past
very recently.
weeks.
This was December. Yeah, I tweeted it out. Yeah. So, it's going in our favor, and that's a good thing. And my view is it can't come fast enough because there are a lot of people who are hurting on the existing system.
For people that hear you talk about,
we had never had ZIRP in the United States. Briefly, they had it during the Depression, but very briefly. And then QE came in, and so with each step, it got worse. And the other thing that I think describes what you're talking about is the way that numbers compound, and that any mathematician or engineer, if you start compounding numbers and put it on a chart, eventually the line almost goes vertical.
Yeah.
Right? Blown away. I mean, and you see these robots and what they're doing. I mean, this stuff is just coming at us so fast. And yes, I think you're right. It makes the problem more obvious, observable, and acute. Yes.
Yeah, and for folks that are wanting to do a deep dive on this idea of technological deflation, Jeff Booth is really he has a book called The Price of Tomorrow. It's phenomenal.
Right.
I know that was a huge instrumental.
That's why Saylor can credibly make a claim that this will be 13 million a coin, because there's a fixed supply and productivity is growing and technology is improving. Eventually we're going to get to the point where the dollar really isn't going to be the numeraire. So, I think my kids and grandkids.
What is that point, Larry? What is that point?
When is that point? I don't know.
In dollar terms. So is that $5 million a coin? You think?
No, silver. And so if there were fiat currencies pre-Bitcoin, people would spend the fiat because they knew it wouldn't buy as much in the future, and they would hoard their gold and silver. So that's the general thesis of Gresham's law. And frankly, we see that going on right now. I mean, I sent to you pre the show some charts that showed that I believe the sovereign debt crisis has started. And the reason I say that is that in Bitcoin and gold terms, the U.S. Treasury bond, which used to be the base layer of stocks, and it's there in the real estate market, and Bitcoin is going to demonetize all of these things, absolutely all of them. I mean, it still blows my mind that, Jesse Meyer's chart shows $900 trillion of, assets, of financial assets. If you include real estate, throw out real estate, it's half that. But, and Bitcoin's what, 2 trillion? I mean, 0.2 of 1%. I mean, good Lord. And this is the best alternative, which was, German marks became worthless. You were glad you had the gold. And so I try to use that, and the problem with that is that that's a scary prospect for people, that the whole currency is going to fail.
Yeah.
The other model I try to use is I just say, look at the performance, and I sometimes I draw this comparison. I say, okay, great. Yes, I get it. But the beauty of this business, as my old boss told me, is, when it works, you don't just make 2x, you make 5x or 10x or 15 or 20x. And, I love, Saylor's comment that, it's going up forever, Laura. I mean, it's, you've got a form of money. I mean, this is a millennium-year-old problem. I mean, thousands and thousands of years, we have never had a form of money that could not be diluted, full stop. And here you have a form of money that it's like any form of technology adoption. And as you know in the book, there's some good technology adoption charts. I mean, there are people in the beginning who don't believe. They just don't believe. But then eventually it just becomes obvious and accepted wisdom that this is, better money than any other form of money out there. Mm-hmm. And one of the best investments that anyone can make. The difficulty, as you know, and it's incumbent upon all of us to help people through this, but I think that, I think it will become more and more obvious. And I think there really isn't a wrong price to pay for it if it's time. I mean, there's another thing. I didn't put this in the book, but I read an article recently that it was a great thing, and I know you'd appreciate this because you respect them a lot. It's not just timing the market, it's time in the market. And it showed how much money Buffett made from the time when he was 65. Yeah, that's what, that's what I meant. And so, it's it's a hard financial beast to understand. And in the book, I tried to really point that out, that there's just never really been anything like this before. And so, it'd be like trying to describe to people who were getting on their first airline flight in the 1930s, some propeller plane to take them from one city to another. And I say it's moral just because I think that, it's very obvious that in any financial system, there has to be a level playing field. And there's not a level playing field in the fiat system because, as we all know, the quintillionaires, have access to the money printer, and, in a ZERP environment, they can borrow at 0% interest and they can buy yield nation to God. And the way that people cheated financially in the past was they had a dishonest, weighing scale, and so they could skim something off the top, right? Yeah. Well, this problem's been around for a long time because of human nature. So, and what I love about it is that mathematically we've got a solution to human nature.
One of the most common questions I get from family and friends is, Preston, where do you personally buy your Bitcoin from?
Ron Paul's been fighting this battle, and I think probably politically it's going to be really hard to eliminate the central banks, although their powers are slipping. I mean, if you look at, and there's a book by Chris Leonard, I'm sure you've read it, The Lords of Easy Money, good book. I mean, central banks are losing their grip, right? I mean, this problem is, people are becoming aware of it, and that book was well reviewed by some very turned to sound money. Sadly, I think we're going to have to endure some more pain before that happens. But I see positive trends. I see a Loomis, or I see a RFK Jr. I see others who, a Massey, and I see others who are aware of the issue, and there'll be more. And hopefully, if we get millions of Americans to read this book, and I'm going to go to Congress and give every one of them a free copy, and we make a hell of a lot of noise about it.
So about that, Larry. How does he think that they're going to?
I think it's an EO. I think it's an executive order very early on. If you think about it, I mean, Nixon did it as an EO, right? He just said we're going off the gold standard, and FDR did it as an EO. I mean, in theory, the Constitution says that monetary issues should be brought up by Congress, right? But of course, we've ignored that for a long time. And so my sense is that they know and understand. I mean, it was just, it's criminal. I mean,
it's insane.
Dick Cheney should be behind bars, so should George Bush. I mean, it's absolutely criminal what we did over there. And that drove, a large part of the problem that we've got, because that was kind of the kickoff to the big deficits that we've now got. It's only gotten worse. So, it's a sad state of affairs that they're creating war and making things safe again so that fewer people get killed. You fought in a war zone. You know what that's all about. I never did, but I came close to, the draft in Vietnam, and I was concerned about it, talked to my dad about it at the time. And, and I've watched all these wars, and I just think they're tragic, absolutely tragic. And, the only way, if it'll be on the pale in your attacks on the Federal Reserve, what's your reaction on that? I don't think I did.
No, I wouldn't. That wasn't my take. My take was,
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, no, I mean,
that was my wife's take. She was like, you can't say this about these, elected officials. I hear it. I hear the point, but I honestly, I think they deserve it.
I think
from that, so that a everyday person, a layman, can read it and go, I get it. That was the goal.
Mission accomplished, let me tell you.
Yeah, that was the goal.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm very kind.
Yeah. This comes out, did I see the 14th of February is when this hits the street?
That's the latest date. So just to bring everyone up to date, we're in the layout phase.
Okay.
I'm trying to make it look as a lot of purchases, then that ranks it higher and all that other good stuff. So
I have no doubt it's going to do very well, sir.
We'll see. I hope so.
Yeah. All right, Larry, anything else you wanted to highlight?
No, that's it.
Okay.
That's it. Thank you to everybody in this community who contributed to this book, and you're in there.